Welcome to the Princess Power Hour, where we show you how to go from pauper to powerful by transforming your health, your wealth, and your relationships. Here's the princess of podcasting herself, Natalie Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have an awesome show. We have Lauren Malloy, and we are going to be talking about how to ignite your life. And some of this can go into how to ignite your sex life. So, Lauren, I'm going to tell you about my lip color of the day. Tell our audience, this color is called Bella. And it makes me feel so good to be able to put on my lipstick in the morning. I can eat all day. I can wear it all day. I can kiss my husband. Check that out. It doesn't come off. I can smudge my lips if I have to. It doesn't come off. It has helped with my confidence, and it just saves time. This lipstick actually lasts 3 times longer in the tube because you're not having to reapply it all day. Isn't that just the coolest thing ever?
I love it.
Thank you.
It looks so good with your hair color, which I meant to compliment you.
Oh, thank you. So my hair color, I will tell you, is a little bit of a pain. It winds up getting on your skin when you apply it. And my hair is so long that I have to actually get wrapped in plastic. Otherwise, anywhere it touches, I am purple. So it's an adventure. My husband's like, please don't make me help you with this again. So anybody that is interested in that lipstick can jump over to lipstickkissesandlove.com after the show, of course, and pick out a color. Be sure to pick out a gloss because it's the secret sauce that locks it all in. We apply 3 coats of the lipstick and then a coat of that gloss. And you can add more gloss before eating or after eating, things like that, but you're not going to have to reapply that lipstick. It's going to last 4 to 18 hours. So let's get on with Ignite Your Life with Lauren Malloy. Let me tell you a little about Lauren. She's a certified coach. She's a spiritual teacher of love, sex, relationships, and a poet. She works with people who are ready to quickly create magic in their relationships and with their partner and themselves. So I have to tell you, when I first met Lauren, she was on Facebook, covered in paint, and it is the sexiest picture. But there's nothing showing or vulgar. It just looks like she's so comfortable in her skin. So, Lauren, were you always comfortable in your own skin?
No, I was as a little girl, but then as I got older, I just absorbing things around me that kind of made me feel more tomboyish or not. There's this whole piece I'm actually going to be writing about believing that fairy tale thing about being the fairest one of all, like just thinking there can be one person that is the most beautiful. And in a sense, that really messed with me, thinking, okay, I see all these girls who I feel are more beautiful than me, then that means I'm not beautiful. So it kind of wore away at me a little bit.
Oh, and
realizing everyone can be beautiful. Everyone can have beauty we're like snowflakes. Everyone is different. So
yes. Ooh, that is so good. I'm writing it down. Everyone can have beauty. Yes. When I was a little girl, I asked my father if I was pretty or beautiful. I don't remember. I was probably pretty. And I remember his answer was, Natalie, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And what he spoke to me was actually truth, but what he did, whether he intended to do it or not, really scarred me. It made me think that he was giving me a polite no. And so I spent decades of my life thinking that I was less than, that every girl, every woman was better than me, and it's wonderful when we can adjust those perspectives of ourselves. So is that part of what you do with clients, help them see themselves in a different light?
Well, definitely. And before I answer that, I just want to say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's as if you're giving that other person the power, where the power is within you. So that's a big part of my work is
I love that.
That you are, that's that connection to yourself. And that's why I say that it's in the relationship with your partner if you have one, but it's really your relationship to yourself. That's where the relationship coaching comes from. Because
Wow.
everything is, we're really trained to look to the outside world for validation and for everything, for attention, for love, and those things are good. But if you're not giving yourself that love and that attention, it's really, you are giving those people that power because they can't give you love and attention all the time.
Right. Right. And, there's a book about different love languages. And one of the things that I'm very aware of is my husband doesn't really speak my love language. What I've had to learn to do is adjust to receive. He is so into acts of service. That man will go out in a rainstorm between showers and wash my car so it looks nice for church when nobody is going to see it. Okay. Now, is that important to me? It is not remotely important to me. But I have to understand that he does that for me out of love, and I have to receive that. And I have to understand that if, let's say I need verbal validation, okay, I might have to look to a girlfriend to get that rather than from him, or I need to learn to communicate to him how to do that. So, isn't that right?
Oh, definitely. It's true. I was with someone years ago who would buy me presents, and that was not my primary love language. My primary love language is the words of affirmation. Even in quality time, more of those intangibles that mean. It took me years to realize that, though. I felt I didn't understand when he would give me these gifts, thinking that was what a woman wanted, that why it didn't make me feel.
Oh.
He loved giving it to me, and I felt bad. I remember him getting me this beautiful necklace, and I didn't have the reaction that he wanted. So.
Oh, wow. And that's where, as women, we need to become aware of all of those things, because we can hurt and wound them and stop their process of giving. And just by our reaction when we don't receive it, I totally get it. For me, words of affirmation is big. I just want somebody to tell me they're proud of me. You've made my entire day. I am so not wired for money. I would work for free if I get praise to go along with it, But in my former relationship, my husband couldn't give me that. And I don't get so much of it in this relationship, but I've adjusted to my need. The other one was so critical that, my gosh, if you're getting put down when you're trying to get, a little pat on the back, that really didn't work, push me the other way. So, okay.
Well, that's part of the work too, is what you were saying before, where maybe asking for those words of affirmation,
Yes.
Or even explaining like why you have a certain reaction to when he washes your car.
Right.
If you're communicating, he might think you're just not ungrateful, but you're just not connected. And the more you are honest, which is a lot of the work I do, the more you're honest with someone, even if it makes you uncomfortable, and articulate what's going on, the more connection you'll have.
Oh, that's true. Communication is everything. And that's one of the things we talked about in the beginning. He's an extremely humble man. I keep looking down that way because he's down that direction. And he, because he's so humble, I think he was almost raised to fear praise. And so it's kind of not part of his nature. So pretty much, if I'm ever going to get a compliment, like, let's say how I look, if I dress up really nice, I might get, and I know that's a really big deal for him. So I've learned to really love, and once in a while he'll say something, but he has to work at that. That's hard for him. And I have to sort of honor and appreciate the fact that he's trying, but that it doesn't come naturally, So is that part of your work, helping people understand love languages? Or tell us what you do and how you do it and why you do it, how you got started.
A big piece of that, and the love languages could come in, but it depends. It's really tailored to who I'm working with. But a big part of it is that creating that magic, and that magic is different for everyone. And the prelude to that is the readiness part. So are you ready for this? Like, are you ready to create whatever it is you desire? And so once you're ready, because, it can be, do you really want changes in your life? It can be a little bit scary at times. And it can be like, you're ready for it. You're totally in that space where you want it. So then,
I want you to paint a picture of what magic is. I know I asked you so many questions and you're trying to answer them all, but we've got to stop there. What is this magic that you're talking about?
Okay. So it can be it could be that way for anything. So the big part of it, where it starts, is what is it that you want?
Okay.
Because magic for me might not be magic for you, but a huge thing, and it's what I do, is desire-based coaching. And it's desire-based in that most people don't really think about what they want. That's not something that maybe they were trained not to do that, or they were told you can't have that, so they will create their relationships or their lives based on what they've seen other people do or what they think they should have. And so a lot of times when I start working with people, they'll tell me all the things that they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do that too. This is what I don't want. And then I give the analogy. Let's say you're in New York City and you're hailing a taxi cab, and then instead of telling the cab driver where you want to go, you tell him, I don't want to go to the Empire State Building.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling him that, he does not have any idea where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
That is the first work. So it's really what you desire. And it takes a while to get to that place, to really, what do you want? What will that look like? And it takes a while to really like step into it. Like, what's the big dream? What's the big goal? What do you want in your relationship? How do you want to feel with yourself first? A lot of people are unconnected to loving themselves. That was a big thing for me, was, wanting to love all these people on the outside, but not really focusing on myself, not focusing on that love.
How did that shift for you to go from not really loving yourself and not focusing on self-love? And by the way, I just have to stop you before you answer that. Yeah. That Empire State Building analogy is the best I have ever heard. I interviewed a number of people that talk about self-love and, but knowing what you want versus what you don't want. I've talked about that on the show before, but that taxi cab driver, that was awesome.
Yeah, because I thought that too, like, oh, well, these are all the things I don't want. But that doesn't give you what you do want.
Right. Yeah. Wow. People will remember that. Okay. Mark that one down, everybody. Okay, go ahead. How did you get started? What made the shift for you?
You mean started in loving myself?
Yes. Realizing that you needed to change even before you could start loving yourself, just realizing that you weren't getting the result and things like that.
Well, going through my divorce was a huge growth opportunity. I didn't realize it at the time. And a teacher at the time opened me up by saying that, I was thinking this was the worst thing that could happen to me. But she taught me that, I'm sure you've heard it before, crisis is opportunity. So letting it be positive. And that really, it opened me. It was a very critical piece. I was very unconscious before then. I settled into this life that I thought was what I wanted. And I was just coasting, and I wasn't doing anything to let the marriage grow. So getting out of that, I think it was, I kept having these experiences where people would ask me about my connection to myself. And it was almost like a slap in the face, where just like the impact of it, to where I just kept coming back to this spot where I'm like, do I really love myself? Do I really even have a relationship with myself? Because if I'm this unconscious and sleeping with this man that I love and I'm married to, do I really, am I being unconscious with myself? And I wasn't really, and this is not to blame anyone. I wasn't taught how to love myself. I wasn't taught how to be in a relationship. And these things really stoked my desire to go into coaching, where it's this, you're in the present, you're creating these things, you're creating this relationship with yourself, but you're also focused on the future. So it's this very empowered, forward moving.
You just struck on something that just all these lights went off in my head. And I was thinking back to high school, and I had a course where, somebody in the class got fake engaged, and, we all had to pretend to go, shop for engagement rings, and they taught us different processes. But wouldn't it be amazing if we were taught this stuff in school, how to have a relationship, how to respect and honor each other, and start with loving yourself? Yeah. If we had classes to teach, right now in the news, there's so much about all of the sexual harassment and abuse going on in, public figures that we've looked up to and admired and everything. But what if we started teaching against those things but at the same time showing how to stand up for ourselves and love ourselves and be in a relationship? Boy, that was just like hitting me over the head with a sledgehammer, girl. We'd have a different world, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Because you're just, when you get to a certain age and you're in a relationship or two, you just think, oh, I'm in it, so I know how to do it. And I was very shocked when I had that realization that I don't know how to be in a relationship. It's almost like I always say that part of my marriage, it felt like a fairy tale before we were married. And then when we, after the wedding, it was as if it was the end of a movie where they say you live happily ever after. And, it cuts to the credits and you don't know what happens after.
I had that in my former relationship, and literally it was as if when we got married, it was like he checked it off and checked out. And it was unbelievable to me. We had a long distance relationship and we would talk 5 hours on the phone before we got married. And then we had a very weird relationship in that he did not move in until months after we were married. Okay. But once he moved in, he would come home from work and I got 5 minutes a day from him. 5 minutes. And to go from 5 hours talking on the phone to 5 minutes, he had never been married before. He didn't have any idea, I don't believe, how to be in a relationship. He spent more time with the cats. And I remember praying, you talk about settling. I used to pray and say, God, if he would treat me as good as he treats the cats, I would be happy. He would come home, he played with the cats twice a day, and he would be so sweet to the cats, and he'd bring little presents to the cats. And he would talk nice to the cats, but they got attention. And I was always wondering, when is it my turn? And he would sit down and he would have dinner. And as soon as dinner was done, the TV went on and then he'd fall asleep. And I'd be like, what? Wait, I'm here.
See, and what would it have been like to say that to him, tell him what you wanted?
That's a really good question.
No judgment there. It's just
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I can't even say whether I did or I didn't. I don't think that he was an evolved enough human being to have heard it. If I did. It kind of just emotionally divorced me 2 weeks after we got married. And that's a whole nother, story.
Yeah.
But how interesting, we used to have what I called sabotage Saturdays. And my eyes would barely be open. I'd still be in the bed. And every Saturday he would find something to be mad at me about so that he could go off and do what he wanted the whole weekend and have nothing to do with me.
And wouldn't it have been interesting if he could have asked for that time without doing that?
It would have been interesting. And there was a time that I did confront him about that. And I did that. I do remember. And I did tell him, I called it sabotage Saturdays. Every holiday he ruined, it got to where it was predictable, And at one point he lost his mother, and that was devastating for him. And he would go out on a Friday night. He'd consume about 10,000 calories based on what he would tell me. And, supposedly fall asleep at a friend's house. I don't know whether all that was true or not. I'm sure it was true part of the time. Yeah. But, not call. I'd be sitting there with dinner ready and didn't come home. So, yeah, I didn't want to repeat that mistake.
No.
Want to learn from those
that's a really great example. And I know there are things that I would have wanted to ask in my marriage that I wasn't conscious of at the time, but a big part of my coaching is asking for what you want instead of him creating a fight, saying, I need this, I need this time.
I do remember when you say that, there's a specific instance. My grandmother had died, and my whole life, I was her only granddaughter. She had no daughters. She had said to me, when I die, you're going to get my jewelry. Okay. I'm not a super materialistic person. I have a lot of things, but I'm not driven by things or money and things like that. But she had said it. So it was kind of implanted in me, right? But I knew when she died, my father would sell it. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And I was feeling sad about that. And I remember specifically asking my husband, would you please, and it was hard for me to ask him for anything, would you please go to TJ Maxx and buy me a piece of jewelry? Pick out something that's under $70 and that would make me feel really good. I really kind of need that. And of course, he didn't do it. And I remember telling him later, like kind of a confession thing. Yeah, because you didn't do that. I filled that need myself, and I probably bought, $600 worth of jewelry. Maybe it was $300. I don't really remember the number. But if he had done that, I don't think I would have had to try so hard to fill the need myself. Not that it should have mattered, I guess. But it did then.
Yeah, there's a way that I like to ask things where
tell us.
It was great that you asked for what you wanted, and the way I like to do it is, would you be willing to? So if he said no,
that's really good. Yes.
Or would you be open to?
That's really good. That way you're not kind of making a demand. You're making a request.
And you said it really beautifully. And this gives more of an option where, and he could have said yes and then not done it, but you were opening that space to really have him be honest with you. And it's not like, it's a challenge. When I think about what I would have done differently if I really spoke for what I wanted, it was hard to even get to the place where I knew what I wanted. But if I did get to that place and thought about asking, I would have been scared. It would have been a lot for me to do that.
I remember being scared, and I remember it being hard. And I remember when we first got married, I remember that our sex life was not even remotely satisfying. And I did a bunch of research and I got some ideas together. And I remember I emailed it. I wrote out an email and I emailed it to myself every week for 9 months because I was too afraid to give it to him. And when I finally got up the nerve to do it, he was angry and refused to read it and kind of like tore it up, and that was the end of it. And I remember being so hurt because it was so hard for me to open up to that, to being vulnerable.
Yeah. And you did it.
Yeah. So everybody, we're going to take a super quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with Lauren Mallory on how to ignite your life. And I know that we're going to be talking about the masculine and the feminine, which is so important. So stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Wedding season is upon us. And I want to make sure that you know we have a great DVD over on Princess Power under the product section on how to have an extravagant budget wedding. I break it down for you. I make it simple. You can have a beautiful budget wedding, and everybody will think that you have spent big bucks, but you didn't. So check it out, princesspower.com over in the product section. Okay, and we're back. Lauren, I know that you came to a point in your life where you found that the masculine and the feminine were important. Tell us why. Why, and what is that about? Give us a description of it.
Yeah. So it became really important to me because through my divorce helped me grow a lot. I was very active in it. I was the one who filed. I had to do everything. I even had to sell the house, and I was doing all these like very active masculine things. It takes a lot of masculine.
How long had you been married? Yes, it does. How long had you been married?
Probably 7 years, and we were together a couple years before that, so it was close to 9 years. So I was doing all these really masculine things. My mom was sick at the same time, so I was taking care of her. I was holding down this crazy stressful corporate job. So I was getting all these things done, didn't realize I was masculine. And then I met with this, I guess he was a contractor to do work on my house because I needed to do work before I could sell it, get the punch list done. And I tell this story in my workshops where he rode up. We met somewhere, like, I don't know, a gas station or something, so I could look over the contract and sign it. And he rode up on his Harley, and he was super direct and to the point and just kind of gruff and no niceties. And there was just something about him that he was extreme, but it totally turned on the feminine part of me. The masculine part of me was really annoyed, but the feminine really started to wake up. And I realized that I was not feminine, and I don't know if I was ever feminine. I think, as a little girl, you're a little girl. And then getting a little bit older, I think I wanted to be like a tough girl. I didn't want to show my vulnerability. So I think I always have masculine side.
We protect ourselves. I remember making a decision to protect myself by being tomboyish. And I've definitely been in the masculine. I see a lot of single women do it. And from my perspective, just the few times that you and I have talked and what I've seen of you on Facebook, I think you just exude femininity and sex appeal. And, thank you. But I can confess that I do have a tremendous amount of masculine energy that I have to keep in check. And when I met that husband that I'm telling you about, where the marriage was so bad, all the men in my life, my father and my grandfather and my former father-in-law, were all what I call girly men. They were all submitted to the women in their life. They weren't real empowered. And they weren't really feminine, but at the same time, they weren't masculine. So I don't know a better way to describe it. You probably have a term for it in your work. Okay. But when I met my former husband, what attracted me is that he was so masculine and so powerful and I think I wanted kind of that protector, and I wanted to be able to be in my feminine. But for whatever reason, it didn't work for us. But I'm very privileged that I found out that it's still possible. I'm with a very masculine man now that doesn't need to be macho. I'm really not for macho.
That's the healthy divine masculine.
Oh, it's
Kieran
amazing.
is masculine, and Kieran is masculine, and we have both. And that's what I'm sure you use that in your business, and even like conducting. You're very feminine in this space, but you're running the show. And so it's the beauty of slipping in and out. So in your work as a woman, you want to be more masculine. And then if you choose, and you get to choose. So if you want to be the feminine and be with a masculine man, you switch into that when you're with them.
Yes, when we get home. Or as a matter of fact, I will tell you this story. Everybody, when I had my offices and my warehouse and everything, everybody that knew me, everybody that worked for me said that I completely changed every time when I was dating my husband. When he would walk into the building, they would say that I would just melt, that my voice would get softer. They could see the difference. But it's something that's become very natural. But in the beginning, it needed to be a conscious change because of that powerful, and I'm all about get it done. I'm very driven in that way. And I know that I'm masculine in terms of like compartmentalizing, and those things all work really well in business. And I'm finding that not all women have that ability, but if I brought that into a marriage, it's not going to be a successful relationship.
Unless he's feminine.
Right.
And you want that.
And I will say I dated one guy that was, and I just kept saying to him, I want to be the girl in the relationship. He was a drama queen and I liked him, but he wanted to be the woman.
Yeah. So you create what you want. You want a man.
Yeah.
But it does take some time to switch between both. But the awareness, realizing it first, the awareness is always the first step, where you realize, oh, I do want to be both. Right.
So you met this guy, you were attracted to his energy, but what happened?
Yeah, he was a little bit like, I think I needed such a drastic example of the masculine to wake up my feminine. Mm-hmm. And he's not someone, I needed someone like dialed down a couple notches below him. Mm-hmm. But it was something that it needed to be that great to wake me up. And then doing the work. So that was my awareness that I am both. I've really switched I've been operating from the masculine. I wasn't ever really as fully feminine as I desire to be. And then that work that comes with that, like, why am I not? What am I? The protecting that you talked about, not wanting to get hurt. I still remember they talk about, a lot of my work is subconscious mind change. And they talk about how your subconscious mind is controlling you 95% of the time. Like a lot of your behaviors are coming from your subconscious mind, which it's programmed when you're even in the womb till 7 years old. And I remember my next door neighbor, she was this older, they called her spinster lady. She had never been married. And I overheard her talking to my mom, and she said something, it totally reverberated through my entire body. She said, men are dogs. And that totally shocked me. And I think I believed it. You're such this impressionable little girl, and you have you respect your elders, and you believe that what they're saying is truth. And we laughed about it, but I think somehow that got in there. So
Wow.
protecting myself through the years, and then learning. My deep work was to get past this distrust and this hurt from what I perceived from men, and to see how
Really?
they are truly vulnerable, sometimes even more vulnerable than we are. They're beautiful. They're even in their
Mm-hmm.
masculinity, they're just
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
they're just as
Mm-hmm.
sensitive and beautiful and vulnerable as we are.
Well, I won't ask you if you were, because I don't want to put you on the spot like that, but I'll just put it out there. And, if anything resonates, you can chime in, but it's okay if you don't too. I was molested as a child. I was molested as a teenager. I was raped as a teenager. I've had probably 6 really inappropriate sexual situations with men. And I think it's really important to not become angry and blame all men for our pain. And yet, you can see a very obese woman, and she can be, and I'm not saying it's all the time, using that as an armor for protection against somebody that's hurt her, and that wounded little girl is still in there. So is this some of the kind of healing you explore with people as you're working through these things?
I've worked with women who've also been in therapy and worked with me at the same time. So there is that, like, that protection piece. I know for myself, I didn't experience anything like that I remember. There are chunks of my childhood that are very blurry. So it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know, but I can't say that that's the case. But I know that that protection piece, for me, it happened in my marriage where I wasn't wanting to have sex, and I found that I would dress a different way, where I would wear like sloppy clothes, and I wouldn't I just kind of didn't want him to see my body. I still had sex like once a week, the obligatory, and I wasn't really connected to my sexuality at that time. And so it was a different form of protection where I didn't want to have sex, so I was not making myself as attractive as I could have been.
Can I throw in my 2 cents on this one for just a second, and then we'll move on?
Yeah.
Ladies, sex is super important to your man. And if you're not having sex with him, it's like driving a nail in the coffin of your marriage. Men do not stay in marriages or relationships when they don't feel successful, when they don't feel appreciated. Okay. When I got thrown back into the dating world at age 50, most of the men told me they left the marriage because their women weren't having sex with them. So I really feel that it's important to deal with your issues and fall in love with yourself, fall in love with your man, fall in love with sex. There are reasons you don't like it. There are reasons you don't want it. And none of us want it all the time. Okay. But it's important, and we have to deal with that. Wouldn't you say?
Well, that's a really beautiful point. And that's a lot of the work that I do is women are dying to have sex. There's so many things that are getting in the way, where a big part of my work is getting them to see how beautiful sex is. It's not, because we've really been, it's these 2 different sides where sex is kind of thrown in our face. And at the same time, there's judgment around it. Really getting everyone to see that, what, women want it just as badly as men, and like getting to that healing space of what can get you to that place. And it starts with that connection to yourself first.
Oh, I agree with that. Absolutely. I love sex. I can't tell you how many times I have thanked God for sex. Like, I just think it is the coolest thing that he thought of. It's just like, thank you, God.
It's amazing energy. It's the energy of creation.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. And now, being married to somebody, come on, mama, one more orgasm. It's okay. One more. Woo! I know. It's like, thank you. Yes. No, I've always, in the past, I was in relationships where I liked it better than the husbands. And, I always joked that I had to chase them around the bed for sex. And, they didn't feel good. That doesn't make you feel good or desired, or, when their libido is low. And, I've since learned that there are certain things that they might be smoking that they shouldn't be, that they might be hiding from you, that lowers the libido. I've had people that have had secrets in there that I didn't know about. I was very naive with a lot of things, and it hurt our relationship. I hated that. I look back at how, in my opinion, better things could have been if they hadn't chosen, to escape.
And that wasn't something that you could have controlled, you know?
No, I couldn't, because if they chose to hide it, I'll tell you something hysterical. My husband I was married to for 22 years. The kids knew he would go climb on the roof to smoke cigarettes. I didn't know he smoked cigarettes. I didn't know he dyed his hair.
Wow.
I would ask him when I would notice something different, and he would lie about it. Like, so part of the work you do is getting us comfortable with ourselves, right? Now you work with women and men both, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell everybody about that. What kind of work it is that you actually do, how you work with people.
Well, I work with singles and I work with couples. So, and it depends on what, you know, it's desire-based coaching. So, for example, I was working with this woman who, she was divorced and she was starting to date and just only thinking that she could be with one man. Like she was with this one man, and it really wasn't everything for her. Like she liked him physically, and just making her realize that she could have more than that. It didn't have to only be that. And then getting into this place where she was meeting a man who was in an open relationship, and she was really fine with that. And so her desire was to really be with more than one man. Like she was getting different things from different men. And that was just more of opening up a space to be really, there was a space of like creation and just desire, and me holding that space and loving her, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So it was something that she didn't see coming up for her, but that was where she needed to go in her growth, was this person gives me something and then this person gives me the other thing. And it might not be something where she's in an open relationship for the long haul, but that's where she was, that's the end where the energy was going. So we kind of go wherever the energy goes. And then in terms of couples, I worked with a couple who it was challenging for the wife to want to even do the work. So I worked with them together, and they had been married for like over 20 years, and she really didn't want to have sex anymore. So it got to the point where I did a lot of work with her, and realizing that it's just getting her more connected to her body, where sex was just this one thing where they had been doing it over and over again. And it's like that favorite food that you have that you eat all the time. And then sometimes you got to spice it up a little bit.
Variety is the spice of life, right?
And I know he used to like to bring in toys, which were really a turnoff for her. And that is something that I teach people, is that you are the ultimate sex toy. So getting her really connected, getting her really in her body. And once you're in your body and you're not in your head, you're just almost like in this primal space where you're enjoying each other's body. You're doing this. I work with like a lot of breath work, just connecting people on this intimate physical level where there aren't any outside forces, so to speak. You are just using your bodies. And it was because the sex toys were making her uncomfortable. It was making her feel like she had to be like a porn star and like she had to perform for him. And now they are just connected on such a different, beautiful level, just human to human.
Wow.
In that whole masculine feminine dynamic.
Oh, that's incredible.
So that's the kind of work that I do. And the other part, the connecting to yourself, it's really exploring. So with this one woman, I talk about this in my workshop, sexual polarity. Well, we were talking about, it attracts the feminine. And she was opening up to this idea. And she was, I live near New York City, and she was on the subway, and so we'd been doing exercises, really getting her aware of that she wanted to be the feminine, and she wanted the masculine man, and what that would look like and what that would feel like. And she was on the subway, and this really attractive guy got on, and it was like they made really quick eye contact, but she said he just he just was drawn and just sat right down next to her, and their arms were kind of touching, and she didn't move, and like her breath kind of like kicked up, she said, and so she could feel his was doing the same thing too, and she could feel the energy between them. It was like those magnets, that you see.
Yeah.
And she knows that he was feeling the same thing because he almost missed his stop. So he ran off the train, and so we were talking about it later, and she was, she would not have said anything to him first because she wanted him to be the active masculine part. So when we talked about it later, what she could have done was if she was ready, it didn't feel like she was ready, but to make eye contact with him, to make him realize that she wanted him to say something.
I will.
Not like she's passive, like she has all the power in a way, like she's pulling him in with her eye contact, her energy, her femininity. So and then when she got off the train, she started making eye contact with another man, and he was like, oh. And so she was like playing in that energy, like getting that beacon and stuff.
About a year into dating my husband, he said to me, we had met, I had gone out to go dancing. I had been hanging on to this attachment that I had to this man that I knew was wrong for me. Okay. And I hadn't seen him or dated him in 4 months. I'd probably seen him at the dances I go to, but not, seen him dating him or anything like that. But I went kind of hoping he'd be there, and he wasn't. And this little man walks across the room and kind of pretends to stand and watch a TV near me. Then he kind of goes back across the room, and then he comes back again, and I think he's trying to find a way to talk to me, and he doesn't, But about a year after my husband and I were dating, he said to me, I thought you wanted me to talk to you that night. And when he said that, I remembered something that I had learned. And I had learned about this thing of looking at somebody, looking, and then looking away, and then looking back and holding it for 5 seconds. And 5 seconds is an incredibly long time when you're looking at a stranger. But I had been taught that, and I tried it one time ever, and it was that night, and I think it worked. But I wouldn't have remembered it if he hadn't have said that. I thought you wanted me to talk to you.
It's true. And it's your energy too. I remember going out, and I knew this at the time, going out during my divorce. I would say my force field is up. My energy was just totally closed off. I didn't want anyone to talk to me. And then once I moved through those stages, I would have men, like I would wear a skirt, and a man would I had these guys like falling all over me because my energy was open. I was receptive to it. I was putting out the signal. It doesn't matter even sometimes what you look like, even if you have no makeup on. I attracted someone walking the dog with no makeup on one day because my energy was really
wow. Yeah, I try to teach women to wear dresses or skirts, to be more in their feminine, and
way to get there.
And I mean, there are times that I will have men just driving by and they'll just hold their thumb up. They're not a cat call thing. They're not trying to pick up on me, but they can really appreciate seeing a woman that looks like a woman, because so many of us, we're out there in the yoga pants or the jogging pants or the jeans or whatever. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
And look angry. I used to do that where you're like, you don't want to talk. But it's so cool that you say that, because I tell this story in my workshop about how I was walking down the street in the city one day, and I saw this man walking towards me, and I knew he was going to say something to me. And all he said to me was, he said, I mean, no disrespect, but you are beautiful. And I said, thank you. I just beamed at him and said, thank you. That was all that happened. And
it feels so good. It makes your entire day when you know that there's nothing behind it, that they're not trying to,
He's appreciating your feminine gifts.
Yeah. So everybody,
I love thumbs up.
I just really encourage you to explore that femininity, to walk in it, to see that there's power in it. Don't abuse the power, okay? But it feels so good. And my husband will say to me now, he calls me mama most of the time, calls me baby some of the time, but he says, Mama, why didn't you let me carry that for you? Why didn't you ask me to do this for you? He always opens doors for me. I love him opening doors for me. I love him pulling out chairs for me. Do I need that? Can I do that myself? Of course I can do that myself. Okay. He knows I don't need a man. He knows I want him. Okay. And gosh, there's so much. There's so much. Tell them how they can reach out to you. Tell our listeners what kind of programs you have, because I know you've got a free call for them if they're interested in working with you.
Yeah. So I always invite people to, it's a no-fee discovery call. It's like a discovery session. And we talk about what you want, like what you desire, what's blocking you. It's a long call. We talk about what's blocking you from that, and then we'll talk about ways to work together if we both agree that we're a good match. And so we'll talk about time frame and price in that call. And for the people on the call today, if you contact me, you'll get one free session in that, whatever package, whatever we determine. And the best way to contact me is to go to my site. It's laurenmalloy.com. I'll spell it. That's okay. LaurenMalloy.com. And there's my emails on there. It's lauren@laurenmalloy.com, and my phone number should be on there also. But I can even give you my phone number. It's 908-421-5204.
Well, everybody, I want to thank you for taking time to listen. Lauren, I want to thank you, for being here. And I apologize for butchering your name in the beginning.
Actually, a lot of people say Mallory.
I always ask, and I thought, well, that is just so simple. I'm not going to ask. So I've just learned my lesson and got, I don't know, what is it?
Well, we talked about everything. I didn't talk about my last name.
Oh, well, I will do better next time. But gosh, you have been amazing. And I just personally, I can say it, just your energy is so peaceful and relaxing and feminine. And the world needs your light. And I just want to thank you for taking time to share it with us today. And we really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Be sure to share the show if you got something out of this, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Princess Power Hour with Natalie Thomas. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit princesspower.com or on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter at PP Princess Power. Until next time, work smarter, not harder. Have a question for your host of Princess Power Hour, Natalie Thomas? Contact us at www.princesspower.com or tweet us at PP Princess Power.